we had originally two different ideas for this workshop. I think the first time that we talked about digital assets, and then we went on in the latest version of the agenda to talk about campaigning and community asset mapping. Who would like to hear about campaigning and community asset mapping? Phew. Okay, so I'll do that bit quickly because there were more people on digital assets. So we're going to slip through the slides just to give you a feel. We just wanted to, in the context of today, tell you a little bit about what makes the right to bid different and distinctive from the other provisions that you can already utilise as communities and councils when you're considering asset transfer or community asset acquisition. We don't always recognise what we have right under our nose, and we get a lot of this. So we get increasing numbers of people calling us, especially in the future in my community rights support service, to tell us that something is already closed, something has already been lost, the council has already taken a decision. So the community goes into campaigning kind of an antagonistic mode towards those who've made decisions or just really don't know how to stop something that's already been lost. And we need to stop doing that. We need to get proactive. The right to bid in particular, the provisions of the Localism Act that are called assets of community value, these give you a proactive right. You need to think and come together early and decide what it is you care about and nominate those assets of community value to be registered on a list by your local authority. Then, if they're put up for sale or they're threatened with closure and loss, you will be informed about it and given a period of time if you wish to develop a bid to buy those assets or take them on through transfer. So this is a mechanism you need to be proactive and in advance list things. So this is where this mechanism is particularly different. We think the first step, however, before you get encouraged to list everything that moves and upset your local authority, which some have been suggesting is a good idea, I don't think it is. I don't think it's a good idea to annoy your council officers with squeezed resources and capacity at the moment and trying to list everything that moves. I think we need to be really clear about what it is important to us. So it means that we might like the building itself, it might have a cultural or historic significance, it might really give us a sense of place about the area that we live in. It might equally be that you can see potential, okay, in a site. So it might be a derelict site, it might be an underused piece of land, it might be empty shops in your high street. These aren't necessarily covered by the Localism Act provisions. In fact, it doesn't recognise assets of potential community value, only ones that are existing or recent community value. But you can use asset transfer provisions, you can use the right to reclaim land provisions. If people want more details, I'm very happy to send them to them. And so there are mechanisms that you could use if you want to be proactive and go after those kinds of things. Equally, it may not be about land and buildings at all, it may be about services. But before you try to save something, Save Our Library campaigners are quite high on the list, think about whether it's the actual service that you value, and think about whether it has to happen in that particular building. If you're trying to save a service, it doesn't necessarily have to happen in the same space or in the same way. We just did a pilot January through March with 5 of our members across the country, and we didn't give them instructions. We said, go away and map assets. We think that mapping assets will be the first thing you could do. That's something like people, time, skills, money, opportunities for collaboration, land and buildings, so the full range of assets you might have in your community. And these are the sorts of things through surveys, focus groups and discussions, walkabouts. They all did very different things and came up with very different kind of products from the, in terms of either it was a list or photographs or taped recorded conversations. But we encouraged them all then to visualise what they've done. We asked them to actually map it, and so we've developed the PlayStation, not the PlayStation. So the PlayStation is a really simple tool. You go onto the website, you register, you can find assets in your area that other people have already put on there, whether that's the council or community representatives. You can find support that people have offered. It may be an architect, it may be a designer, a surveyor. You can also add assets yourself or add your own expertise and support as a member of the community. So it's a really simple idea so you can have a map and essentially do what I'm doing here. Put the map up in a meeting or a group discussion, because you'll probably find all of these things, which is great, but do you really want to take all of them over at once? Some people in the room I know are quite ambitious. But essentially, this is a £15 million development prospect in Harrogate. This is the haunted town hall at the bottom at Hastings Pier. There's was the Penny Lane Development Trust, this is derelict land, which is now a beautiful, amazing transfer and a new site, community centre. That's the Arts Centre in Castle in Worcestershire. It's been taken over now, hopefully, from the Church Commissioners by the local community. You can't do everything. Prioritise. If you think about community budgeting exercises over the last few years, people have come together and said, we've got X amount of money, how can we spend it best? And they've looked at a range of projects and they've voted on it, crudely speaking. That might be an approach you want to take too, but somehow you need to break down what it is you're going to do and approach it in bite-sized chunks. You won't want to list all of those things as assets of community value necessarily, but you might want to. You just need to think. And then, of course, you need to act. You need to do something. So you might choose which mechanism, you might choose which building to start on. It says the data is not enough for a reason. The website can only take you so far. It can only show you a few things in terms of who's there. You're then going to have to talk to them. You are going to have to get offline and go and meet people. And we hope to see plenty of that to support you doing it over the coming months. Okay? That's your campaigning speech. The one about digital assets, we will put to the end, because Christoph's going to answer for that one. Okay?
Thank you, Anne-Marie. I'm going to follow Anne-Marie's last exact point, actually, almost the letter, about how there's no substitute for being in the room. And here we are, in the room. Can I have a little bit of quiet, because I'm not PCs, I'm afraid. I'm pretending to be a media expert, I can't even work a PC.
Sure.
There'll be a left click, won't there? Good. Excellent. So, hi everybody. As Sophie saw you and Christoph Warwick from Open Cinema. And I just want to give you a couple of main ideas about how to use the media, and then tell you what our experience has been at Open Cinema. And then we can have some open discussion. The three real main ideas I want to give you. The first is that the media is yours. The second is that the media is about conversation between you and whoever you want to talk to. And the third is that there's no substitute for being in the room. Just a little bit of background. I started working as a filmmaker in the film industry, making short films, documentaries and feature films in 1998. So I'm speaking as somebody steeped, perhaps to my shame, in 14 years of media experience. So I'm just here really at your disposal to offer you what I know about media and how it can be used for communities, because this organisation, Open Cinema, which I founded in 2005, is about making cinema available to ordinary communities who haven't previously had much control of cinema. In the 20th century, cinema was owned pretty much, the cinema in this country was owned pretty much from Hollywood, and even now, only 8% of content seen in this country is British film, and probably only another 8% is world cinema, and the rest is from the United States of America. God bless them. But this is a time of great change, and this is a time when media tools have been made much more cheaply available to anybody, and so we are here to facilitate the transfer of ownership of the media to ordinary communities. And we came at this from a rather unusual situation, which was that we noticed, me and my early colleagues and volunteers, that Soho was both the centre of the film industry and the centre of the greatest concentration of homelessness in the country. And there was no easy means for film people to talk to homeless people, so we set up a film club for homeless people, and we've been running them ever since across the country, and we now work in other social sectors. We work with age charities, we work with ex-offenders, and we work with disadvantaged young people in community projects. So we have found that cinema is a very powerful means for doing that, and we'd be happy to talk. We're working on a libraries project, and a riot-torn library that was set fire to twice in the riots last August, with Mike McCusker of Fresh Horizons in Huddersfield, who's here today. And we found that the media was a very powerful way of engaging and including and catalysing the opportunities and skills of the most excluded people. But the same goes really for any community. Our work is based on research into that, which I can talk more about. But there is a lot of research that shows the difference that culture can make to communities. That's some of the support. I mean, I really included that slide to talk later about partnerships, and I'm going to race through the rest of the slides because I want to quickly use the flip chart while I've got the floor. And these are some of the partnerships that we have brought to bear on this project, combining them with people like this, who again previously never really had a way of talking to each other, but community cinema is a way of bringing together all these partnerships. That's our theory of change and how we catalyse the kinds of development I was talking about. And again, I can share these slides with anyone who's interested. And we've got some success stories, but I don't know how relevant that is. Here are some really inspiring examples I quickly want to mention as very, very innovative and powerful uses of media to catalyse community development. The Simon Bolivar Orchestra, who have recently toured this country, who found that classical music was an amazing way of developing skills and opportunities for some of the poorest people in Venezuela. And they've now replicated that model in Glasgow and San Francisco. They're Streetwise Opera, who we partnered with last week at the London 2012 Orchestra, where we hosted 300 homeless people in the Royal Opera House, and films made by homeless people from all over the world. They also have a very powerful way of using music, and so on. But so there were some brilliant innovative approaches. Just to mention the Cyrenians, who used building skills as a way of both training people in building skills, but then actually leaving them with a building to move into living. So I'm very quickly going to just do a little exercise, which is the most important thing I think you can do in developing your media capabilities is to think about your the map of your key stakeholders. So in our case, we were in Soho, where there were both film makers and homeless people. Down the road, almost geographically, there was the government, a local authority. There were peer film companies who all wanted to support us. Over in the east of London, and this is all sort of applicable really anywhere, there was a tech hub where we had lots of free support to develop our media capabilities. Some money from them, and then partnerships with them, and we also work with universities, and we also work with a range of, we work with faith communities, we work with charities, foundations, and the point of drawing this map is that we have started, we've been just using the medium of community cinema, we have been enabled to start conversations between all of these stakeholder groups. And there are online and offline ways of doing that. The fundamental concept of a medium like Twitter, for example, is that it is a means of starting a conversation with people who are important to you as a project. And so if you want to engage people who can support your community project, whatever it might be, you need to just find out who those people are. Make yourself a list of 100 important decision makers or influential players in your area of interest, and reach out to them on Twitter and start that conversation. And you'll be amazed at what might come out of that. The same goes for Facebook. When this project was started in 2005, Facebook was still a university project in Harvard. It's now obviously a network of nearly 1 billion people, slightly alarmingly. But a lot of this was just about pounding the pavements and going out and meeting people, but now there are much easier ways to do that. And I would just recommend a combination of the two. Really find out who's in your... The first thing to do that we did as an organisation is to find out who in your community loves social media. You might, I mean, you've made it as far as this session to talk about social media, but you might be intimidated or just put off by the way that it works. Find someone in your community who loves it. In fact, the very first employee of Open Cinema was somebody who loves social media. And so she just set us up with several thousand Twitter followers and a Facebook group with lots of activity, and built a platform for conversations that have led to partnerships internationally. And it is remarkable. I mean, we've only been concentrating on this one area of community cinema, and since launching nationally in 2009 and making a music video that went international, we've had inquiries from 43 countries. So things move very fast, and it's very easy actually to bring in to your project support of the kind that you might want. So I think I'm going to kind of leave it there with an idea of that not to be intimidated by the media, to foster the idea of partnerships, to be clear about what your goals are, of course, and then just to deploy the media to achieve them. I think I'll leave it there. Great. We're going over a bit.
Any questions and answers after Anne-Marie's finished her last bit, which is also equally as interesting?
Did I just interrupt you?
No.
Okay,
No.
so you did actually.
I will tell you. Okay, the reason that we wanted to basically show you that there's this issue of geographical mapping, which I find particularly useful, and I find more useful looking at plans. So the PlayStation has a kind of a Google map behind it, and you can easily switch to Street View if you want to look at the buildings you're talking about in a meeting or discussion with people. But we also want to talk about stakeholder mapping. You don't have to use that kind of approach, it depends what works for you. But thinking about how you actually reach out and work out who is where you are, so it's not just the building, but what people are nearby that can help you and how can you make contact. You can register yourself and encourage people to register on your Twitter feed, or you can do it on the PlayStation or elsewhere. Just work out which way is doing it. Yeah. We can do Twitter.
It's just kind of...
Okay.
I thought I hadn't not that basic.
That's fine, that's fine.
But you don't need to do anything about it now.
No. We will though, we can. Yeah, so they're creating 2 apps for smartphones and iPad. One of them allows you to walk along with a 1926 map that's famous on where the cliffs were. And the kids walking along can literally see, this is where how far the cliffs has moved, because I'm now standing where they used to be, and there's a huge gap. So very exciting, the kids tactile, walking along the beach and following the kind of erosion and looking for things. Another part of the app, the second one, was to look around my region at important buildings or else services or businesses. So it's an augmented reality app, which means you can point your phone on its camera setting at a building, and it will pop up and tell you what's the dish of the day in the pub, who last ate there and whether they liked it. And that means that they can start to think about, well, if this works, because it's a prototype, could we get the businesses to pay to be found on here? So you could use it as effectively a free advertising, but a virtual kind of advertiser that's very live and updated and interactive. So both of those are quite exciting, except they don't have broadband. So they don't have much of a mobile signal, so they also needed to create their own network. So about 8 weeks ago, over the bank holiday weekend, they set up the largest open, free, high-speed wireless network in the country, right at the end of the beach, and it costs £3,500. This is based on a Spanish model, where communities have done this for themselves, and it's replicable across the country. The town council like it so much that they've said maybe we would like to raise the money to put a mesh over the whole town, so we can all have super fast broadband basically on this basis. And so this has really motivated the community. When I turned up, they were saying, our kids are digitally excluded, they're staying in the town or they're leaving forever. If they stay around, their aspirations are quite low, their wages are quite low, because they can't get on the net and they're not talking to other people the same age. If they have this, they can. So what a dramatic difference from somebody just saying, I wonder if you can make money off the internet. A fantastic trust, fantastic examples. This pilot programme will be written up in a comprehensive report which will come out in the next 46 weeks on the main website. But if people want more details on it, they're very welcome. We're exploring at the moment whether it's possible to push this out there, but just to bring us back to today and the kind of context. This is a huge building. Most of the people that are calling us at the moment, or over the last 6 to 12 months, are calling us about community centres, libraries and arts centres and youth centres. Often this single building, single room, you can't let them and use them for community purposes at the same time. So the model of being a landlord and generating money from room hire as per this building won't work. But you could develop an online asset for a number of those, a consortium of those kinds of organisations occupying those kinds of buildings. If they have a USP that you can capture, And the idea would be to obviously generate income in a way that they can't from their physical spaces and use the virtual world to complement that. So that's where we hope it will come in. But I would hands up say it's experimental and I still haven't been going to Facebook. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. As ever, so inspirational to hear the amazing stuff that's going on nationally. What does it mean for you locally is, I think, what we would like you to take away from that workshop. We may not be able to explore it now, but are there any questions for either Anne-Marie or Christophe?
Yeah, terrified. It's
Hi, Anne-Marie. This broadband mesh, do we need a license or anything to be able to put this in?
as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm aware, you don't need a license to put your own private network in. If you want to hook it up to the World Wide Web, different matter. And then you need legal advice depending on the scale of your network and what you're going to be carrying on.
I know there's been a lot of things in the workshop, but yeah, you?
I guess I feel the easiest, most tractable one is the idea of the Wi-Fi mesh, and you can think of a load of events where it'd just be fun, wouldn't it, to have a decent mesh there. So just a bit more on pricing of that. You said $3.5 grand. Come on, tell us the real story. How much would it cost? Will that cost come down? Is it the standard cost? How much more does it really cost?
But the actual kit costs £3,500 to Wi-Fi about, I think it's 5 to 7 miles along the coast. Bear in mind, this is so I don't know if you're technical geeking, but they're these sort of massive outside big little box in the middle. I don't understand it either. But they're this big. You put them on the side of the street and you line them up, and they do interfere with microwaves if you misset them. So you can, some of the B&Bs in line readers were a bit put out until we changed the frequency. So we tested it, but essentially they line up and they're very inexpensive. The more that people bought, the more the price would come down, as with anything. But there is a significant economy if you go for a mesh, basically. But in Catalonia, I gather that most people have not the main mast, but a repeater one, a little aerial like that. Consider it your freebie box instead of your Sky subscription. £15 equivalent to put on your roof. So that every household, you could go in like a shared issue type approach. Who wants to be part of the mesh? And with enough of them, you can cover a place quite cheaply.
So, is there anyone setting up a hire company for these things so that you can...
Well, the idea and the recommendation for the programme is that Marcus should use his kit to go around to the Strawberry Festival, the Hay Festival, these sorts of things in the first instance, because they taught people in Rugby just went to Barcelona, learned how to do this, and they came back and showed them in practice. And they're happy to show the next people that wants to do it on a pay-it-forward basis, which we think could really reduce the cost of rolling this out. The main cost will be a server. You have to plug it in and you have to serve up your network, and somebody has to maintain that. So that could be a role for a social enterprise that wants to do that. And Marcus might do that also, but he's particularly interested at the moment in festivals because it doesn't involve a license to connect up to the World Wide Web. You just make a very fast private network for your kind of bubble for your event. It should be said that what's unique about these things is they're 10 times faster than the speed of BT for uploading information. So John, who's doing a video all around the place, is very well known on Twitter for something called Twicket. So he live broadcasted a village cricket match to show, well, highlight the issues about rural broadband and digital access and exclusion for rural communities really in the north. It caught on and everybody started to film cricket matches. Definitely caught on with it and really got into the idea of how can we get live streaming a video from very hyper local activity like that. Just think if you've got a local football club, a local cricket team, a local festival, pop groups that want to get known that are coming up, basically local bands that are playing in your pubs or whatever it is that lines them up, you can give them an opportunity to reach a much wider audience if you can broadcast at very high speeds. And the private sector can't compete with you, they don't have the infrastructure in your local area. So there is a significant competitive edge to this kind of project where you can get lots of very small local content out to a wide audience. At the moment, Sky is a monopoly on the premiership for sponsorship, for advertising revenue, quite right, at big clubs. But I wonder who would start to sponsor a network that had 1,000 local sports clubs in it. It could reach a much bigger audience potentially. So it's waiting for somebody to have the energy and go and find that first kind of way to step into the market, I think. But it should be something that you see as a community-owned asset. It's your infrastructure for broadcasting information to communities. You can give free access to people who currently can't afford broadband and these sorts of things. This is the ultimate fourth utility. It's privatised, but you can take this back, and I think it's, for me, a very exciting opportunity.
Does anyone have any questions about using film or hosting a film or a community cinema? Okay, but so you were going to...
You talk about community. I'm quite interested to know how we can... There are people who are familiar with... How do you determine what demographic that you're reaching rather than who you want to reach? We only say that today we're going up to 2.1 million listeners in that group. But people, in a certain community group, we may you may have lots of followers, but none of them live in the area of need. Is there any work done about that sort of about the how coverage matches need or indeed target?
Are you thinking of a particular platform?
No, I'm just thinking about the use of the social media in general, because we dare to not do it because and we can get lots of hits, lots of friends, all the rest of it. But does it actually do? What does it do? Is we hear about silver surfers. How do we actually, the people we really want to reach, or indeed the people who want to reach us, is because the printed media is sort of, in many areas, hugely threatened. But I just wonder if there's a fairly objective view about the success of it. Because as I say, it's very exciting, this, and if you do it, yes, but for those who don't do it, it doesn't exist, or they hear it, I've heard,
Okay, so I think there's a few questions there. So one is that there's very good statistical information now about the age groups, the demographic that use different kinds of things, whether that, so Facebook is an older age group than, is that what I Twitter? Yeah. Yes. So there is ironically, and there are times peak in the day and night. So people use Facebook at night and Twitter during the day, for example, unless they're diehards, obsessed. So you can then look at your followers and you can export your follower list and it will put them on a map. So there are some widgets online which will convert them. So I can see that 10% of my followers are from America. I can see that about 5 to 10% are outside of Europe. Within the UK, it turns out that I do a mixture of buildings and asset-related stuff, which is not necessarily most girls' idea from a Twitter feed. And you can also see I tweet a lot about politics when I'm ranting, or about tech stuff, because that's my passion and interest on the side of buildings. So I actually have a demographic of a 20 to 35-year-old boy, single, no children, likes to follow my feed. That's what I have found out. So am I reaching communities? Possibly. But I also reach a lot of significant players like Chicken Lottery, key kind of organisations, and you can easily see their profile and you can see that they're the hitters by mapping your kind of follower list.
So you can analyse who's following your...
You can generate a map like this from the internet using your Twitter handle. You can put it in and it will show you who's following you, whether you've got big people following you.
And then you can decide who you want to engage from there on. I mean, if you're happy to have a kind of widely spread community of interest in whatever is happening in your community, then that's great. If you want to engage people in more offline activities, if you want to get people into your library or your community hall to do real offline activities, then you can concentrate, you can shift your focus.
I would say hyper-local blogs, where there's actually you put up a paragraph, no more than 300 words about today's, who you've met, what's going to happen in the evening, what events you're on. Those sort of things tend to be a very good way of grassroots engagement. And again, there is an age profile, but it's not as predictable as you think. So the King's Cross one is obviously the famous one nationally, but there are now hundreds of these local blogs coming on that are very cool.
And you will amaze your young people if you engage them with some literacy, some sort of digital, some social media literacy. It's a brilliant way of kind of bringing back young people into a conversation about broader community activities.
One last question from
This is a complimentary point. It might be that social media, depends how you define it.
I work in an organisation that deals with targets youth work, or one bit of it does youth work. Another bit deals with particular needs, not education. They are notoriously difficult to support. They're notoriously difficult to contact. And the most successful way we've done it, and very successfully, is via BlackBerry messaging. Because I think I'm right, the messages are free on, they're confidential, they're instant, right? Got it? You can get answers from individuals and groups, because you can send group messages, and as a way of contacting them, providing information, and providing individual one-to-one support. It's any other method that we've ever tried.
And it's about that. It's the same as when somebody usually comes and talks about an asset transfer. So what form should the organisation take? And it's the same thing here. It's like, what is your purpose? Who are you trying to engage? Why are you trying to engage them? What do you want them to do when you engage with them? And then you choose your tools and try to think about how you finance and staff and promote that. So you've really got to get the purpose spot on. The PlayStation's been out for 2 years, and at the beginning it was because a guy called and said I have 20 people looking for buildings. That didn't get other people excited. There aren't many people with 20 people looking for buildings to be
Just to ride into that, there's a big national bids. We've got that by the DWP. They've just gone in. It's to support young people, 14 and 15-year-olds, who might become leaders in the future. And the specification is excluding the use of Facebook as a method of support and content. Just watch out for that one.
Why is that, do you know?
Well, presumably because it's not personal. In supporting people, often you get lots of personal information back and forth. Facebook is open.
It's open to bullying as well.
Yeah.
But I think it, in some sense, perverse that this is going on. I think it's a misunderstanding of what the power of Facebook and the way people communicate. But it's just come out. I mean, the specifications are out for months. The bids have just gone in for a number of other bidders. But a very specific exclusion of Facebook. And that, presumably, that's like it's here.
So before we go straight off, I just want to say that I'm around, I'm sure Anne-Marie is for the rest of the day. If anybody has any questions on any of this, we've cantered through slightly, but please do just come and say hello and ask anything that you're interested in.
For me, the message from Christoph, I've heard him say before, maybe not today, it hasn't shown through as much, and sorry to curtail you, but any building, any community building could be a community centre. And that's the power of that.
Yeah, I didn't want to come to the sales pitch.
No, but I want to say that because
it's true that
yeah, because campaigning, doing film together, that's a powerful way of engaging people. We wanted to plug that, and we wanted to plug all the various platforms online that Anne-Marie is just such a whiz on. You know, pick her brain on Twitter. She replies so quickly. It's probably faster than a phone call, although she also answers the phone. If you're interested in any of these, please let us know. You know, just grab our cards, anything, we'll send you the details.
Yes.
What I think didn't shine through as well is the PlayStation. On the PlayStation, you can actually use that, rather than get into Twitter or whatever if you don't want to say, I'm running an asset, I need more people to help me, or I would like to run this asset. Is there anybody else interested? Or the local authority might put some stuff on there. I think that's the way, that's a really key message out of today. Go on it and find out what's on it. Because it's place and it's assets, so it's all about what's going on today.
Leeds City Council and Bristol City Council kindly agreed to try and putting their assets and community value registers on there. And we would encourage any councils that might be to actually consider doing the same thing. It means there'll be a single source of information that we can then use to log in and other funders to show what kinds of buildings need investment in them in a particular period of time.
And you can have your own cinema.
Right, thanks for coming. They're available later on.